Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to Fave Unite TV. Welcome to On Stage. I am your host, BukekaStyle, and we are excited because we are a platform that is showcasing Black stories, Black storytellers, and bringing the culture to you 24/7, 365. We want to make sure that we provide you with content that is diverse, covering aspects of the African diaspora and making sure that you are up to date on what's happening in the world of creativity, of information that is relevant to the culture. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we are very excited. I am very excited to bring to you an amazing individual. We are both from the same part of the world. I'm from Detroit. He's from Detroit. All right. Yes, Detroit's in the house. And oh my gosh, are they winning football like crazy? But that's another story. That's another story. But anyway, everybody, we've got DeVonté Brown. DeVonté hails from the dynamic streets of Detroit and now crafting visual tales in the heart of Kansas City, Missouri. DeVonté brings a natural and honest touch to cinematography and directing that transforms narratives into visual poetry. His roots lie in the narrative realm while embracing the diversity of commercial content and the rhythmic pulse of music videos. DeVonté loves collaborating and building relationships with crew, valuing the pre-production process, and understands that every contribution is a vital piece to the cinematic puzzle. His visual journey fuses the raw authenticity of his Detroit origins combined with the eclectic energy of Kansas City, Missouri, creating compelling stories that resonate beyond the screen. Let's just make sure that we have a clear understanding of what it is that excites you about the work that you do. Tell us about that.
Um, what excites me about the work that I do is usually the stories that we're telling. Um, I want the stories that we tell to um, give people a different perspective, hopefully, on something. And then there's also stories that are just fun to make with your friends, right? Everyone, not every, I don't think everything needs a message. Sometimes it can be just like, hey, let's have an escape. Everyone needs a little break sometimes. So I think making movies that are just a break for the world or a break for people who are viewing it is also valuable. Um, because life is hard. So I think that's also valuable. Yeah.
Yesterday or day before yesterday was my anniversary. I went my 11th wedding anniversary. And we went out to dinner and just decided to come home and tried to find a movie. Found this movie called The Black uh The Blackening. Have you ever seen this movie?
Yeah.
Which speaks exactly to your point.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that movie's pretty funny.
It was
It
really funny.
it was
Yeah.
it
And
was
and
definitely
even though
like
it did, go
it,
ahead, go ahead.
it was definitely like it was watching them. It was like all those TikToks and TikTok videos and Instagram videos you see of like how Black people will react to horror movies. That's what that movie was.
Exactly.
I thought I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, we did too. We laughed a lot. I'm sure our neighbors were like, "What are they laughing so much for at 1 o'clock in the morning?" But anyway, the fact of the matter is that, and it speaks to what you said that you know, cinema has all kinds of brings out all kinds of emotions, brings out all kinds of basically our real life experiences, and sometimes we just need an escape. sometimes you just need to get away from all the stuff that's going on in the world, and there's a lot going on in the world right now.
Yeah.
So, as far as the projects that you've done, describe some of those projects. What are some of the things that what's one that speaks out in particular to you, or a couple that speak out in particular to you that was very meaningful for you, even whether it's has a message or whether it's one that was like an escape.
Um, so right now, all of the ones I've made, I feel like have a message. At least the ones that I've directed. Um, um, the first one that kind of ignited my my thought process towards directing was called Now What, which was basically about a little boy during 2020, summer of 2020. And basically how all little black boys felt. And he's on social media and he sees all this, cops killing, people arguing one way or the other. And he's kind of finding himself and realizing that the color of his skin, some people will view him as dangerous because of the color of his skin. Um, and so there's it's really just him in this whole 3 minute short film, uh, talking to himself in the mirror and
Mm.
asking, talking to himself in the mirror, but also asking the audience as they're watching, like, what do you want from me? You know, um,
Yeah,
it's something that I think every black person has done. Is, it's one of those moments when you get angry and you're kind of psyching yourself up, you're talking, trying to talk to you, but he's just like, I don't, this is who I am. And then at one point he leaves the room and we stay in on the shot. He comes back in with a gun and points it at the mirror.
mm.
And he kind of goes, this is what you want from me. You want me to be a monster, a criminal. You don't
Wow.
see you don't see a child, all you see is black.
Right, right.
And that is one of those moments where I made this piece with co-directed it with LaRon Cooper, and
Mhm.
then the concept was from myself, LaRon Cooper, and Marcus Grader, who was the DP on it. But it came from the tension of that summer and us doing a check-in, really. We were like, hey, y'all want to meet up, make sure everyone's good. And it ended up being a 6 hour or more conversation. And this is what came of that 6 hour conversation. Um, so yeah, it was that was probably the thing that ignited, like, yeah, this is, I can do this. Um,
Right.
I've been working in film for years and been a part of plenty of productions, but this was like the one that it was the spark, I guess. I don't know. It ignited me. Um, and then from there, I made Vi, which was about a mother's grief in the place of the death of her husband and her becoming a single parent um, uh, through a cop's perspective of what was going on from outside the building. Ends up getting shot, and so that's where which Vi is short for vying, because the parents were vying for the child to just be better and have
Okay.
more than what they had. And it's really just a conversation in a laundromat between two parents about their son and the events that
Wow.
occurred there. Um, yeah, I mean, that's those two definitely hold a place in my heart of like,
Right.
yeah, like
Yeah.
that's what I mean when I want to make movies that say something and but also show a perspective that maybe you haven't thought of, maybe
Right.
some viewer hasn't thought of. And some viewers will get, some viewers won't get, but I wanted to start a conversation at the very least. Because I think that's part of what what's wrong in a lot of the world is no one wants to have honest and open-hearted and hard conversations.
Right.
Um, and no one wants to be open enough to accept those other conversations and see them for what they are. and understand that everyone has a different perspective, and that perspective isn't wrong, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Um, there's some, not everything's black and white, but there are some gray areas in some things, like
Oh,
where it's like,
sure.
it's we can come to an agreement and everything.
So film definitely has the potential to not only be have its entertainment value, but it also has the value of bringing about conversation, and not only to bridge ideas, but also for a healing. And at you as the filmmaker have had that experience in both situations, it sounds like. What was some of the feedback that you've received on those two pieces?
Um, I think on both, there was everyone pretty accepted it and understood what was going on. Um, both were dealing with what was going on in 2020 a little bit. Vi was something I had wrote years ago before I went to college, and um, I had just adapted it to who I was in the present, and my values and morals had changed from when I was a teenager to now. Um,
Yeah,
so I had kind of adapted that script, but now what? Um, of course, because we just released it on social media because 3 minutes, we're like, we just want people to see this. We wanted
yeah,
people's perspective. We wanted to start a conversation. That was it. So we released it on social media through all the platforms. It got maybe 30K plus views from Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and I don't think we put it on TikTok. Probably should have. But it was received well, but of course we had some comments, small comments that were kind of just being trolls, really, like
yeah.
that. When we responded to some of them at one point, just kind of like, hey, if you want to have a conversation with us, feel free. You know,
Right,
um, no one ever got back. No one. It was like you're stuck in your world, and you don't understand that the world is bigger than where you're at,
yeah,
and your mindset needs to open up just a little bit more for you to just accept some things. Like but then again, also some people just don't want to understand the perspective of a little black kid and what they
right,
feel, you
right.
know,
Yeah,
and how they feel like they're viewed.
yeah, yeah,
Because a lot of times, unfortunately, a lot of times perception is reality, and that's their reality for you, and the way they perceive you is their reality for you.
right. Yeah, yep. And that those are things outside of our control, really. I mean, we can only we have to be able to take care of ourselves.
Mhm.
And being an African American, that's a moment by moment situation. From the time we get up, the time we go to bed, we're
Mhm.
always in that mode of who are, how am I being seen? Or, and even if we don't, um if it's not intentional, or it's just sometimes just a thought in the back of our mind. I mean, I remember when my son was 7, he's 34 now, and when he was 7, he was running through a store, right? Now, there was nothing overt in conversations that I had with my parents or with my grandparents that said I should be fearful of that experience. It was just kind of in the water. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's just kind of there. So when that happened, I had a knee jerk reaction to have him stop running through the store, not because of he might trip and fall, but because I was afraid of what someone might do to him if they see this little black boy running through a store.
Yeah.
Did he steal something or blah 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 blah? You and it shook me because I thought I shouldn't have to walk around with an inherent fear. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of my ethnicity and race. But my father, who you met, is a
Mhm.
sociology professor emeritus, and his focus at Central Michigan University was race and racism and civil rights. So that was just that was always at the forefront in my household. But it was still those little things that were back in his generation and back from their generation. It just goes so far back in our DNA, literally.
Yeah.
So to be able to tell those stories in this day and age, and still have to tell those stories
Hmm.
in this day and age
Yeah.
is something to behold.
And
Um, as far as your when you started in your career, tell us a little bit about that. What prompted you to move in that direction? What inspired you?
so I've always been kind of an art head a little bit, at least in a certain sense of like I was really good at coding at one point in high school. I was from Detroit, moved to a small town, Newton, Kansas, um, and that's where I kind of got into the coding and all that kind of stuff, um, which I turned out I was really good at. But I was also in the graphic design. I was also in the photography, and then I had a little bit of video editing and things like that I had going on, just playing around. When I finally decided to go to college, found a school that had all that, and I wanted to do all of it. And they were like, "That's not this type of school. You have to pick one profession to
Okay.
study under." And my mom was like, "You should do film." And from there, I was like, "Okay, cool. I liked it." So I didn't really, you know, um, I was like, "Yeah, I'll go that route." And so I just kind of committed that to that route. Um, and went to school, did that. And once I was close to getting out of school, I started to become a production assistant. Um, I just went knocking on doors, thought I wanted to be an editor, sent a resume, like, oh, we're not looking for editors, but we'll keep you in mind. They ended up calling me to PA on a lot of things, and eventually it just snowballed. And I found myself doing that alongside of doing my own like music videos and other short things and weddings and things like that. Um, and just kept the dream going. I always knew I wanted to be a director, a DP, um, but along the way, I was just kind of learning the craft from all my peers around me, um, and then taking whatever I learned to the sets I was running,
Right.
and just making sure I could execute my thought process accurately and just continuing to grow. It wasn't easy. It's still, it still is not easy because, as an artist, everyone hates the phrase struggling artist. But it is some truth in that.
Yeah.
And rather it's financially, mentally, physically, all of that,
Right.
and it's a sacrifice to chase your dream. So that's what we love it, right?
Yes,
Uh
we do.
so yeah, I mean now uh after about 10 years of doing it, yeah, I've directed my first feature with some stars in it, which was a great experience. Um, and hopefully we should see that this summer or spring. So
Well, congratulations.
yeah, appreciate it. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, so my husband is from Chicago
Yeah.
and he moved to Kansas, which was a huge culture shock for him. So I just heard you say that you moved from Detroit, Michigan to Newton, Kansas. What
Yeah.
was that like for you in terms of just the whole change in culture, in scenery, and everything?
It had its pros and cons. It was definitely a culture shock because I was raised around black people. Like
Yeah.
my whole life, all I've saw, like if you were white, you were the minority where I'm from.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
uh
I know.
like that's how it was. I grew up right 8 Mile, Illinois. I went to Pasteur Elementary, Hamilton Middle School or Barbara Jordan Middle School, and then
Wow.
went to my freshman and sophomore year was at Highland Park.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
and by that's when I moved to Newton, Kansas, my junior and senior year. So like
Wow.
I lived around that my whole life. So
Yeah.
we come into Newton, Kansas, and where it was like 40% white or 50% white, 30% Hispanic,
Yeah.
uh maybe 10% Asian and like 5% black and like another
Right.
5% something. Like it was like I could count on one hand how many black people were there my first year.
Right.
So it was different. Um
Yeah.
it goes back to like me being a new kid. Some of the white kids thought I was dangerous
Mhm.
because of their perspective
Mhm.
and what their perspective, their perception was. Um, they thought I was like I was gonna hurt them or something. And I
Yeah.
was like, you don't even talk to me one time. You don't even know me.
Right.
So I found that strange. Yeah, I don't know. I just found it
Yeah.
strange. Once they got to know me, they're like, "Oh, you're awesome." I was like, "Yeah,
Gee, you're just like the rest of us.
I'm
Yeah.
just I'm just a normal person."
Right.
um, so it just goes back to perspective, and I'm glad some of them were, got that exposure to a different type of culture that they weren't necessarily thought they would ever have exposure to.
Yeah.
I might have been the only black acquaintance they've had.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
Um, but it was definitely a culture shock. I would say what did what some of the best thing I think for when moving was probably the fact that my mom was more comfortable with me just leaving the house. Even though
Yeah.
we were in a small town that was predominantly white, like she was still like, it was a weird like she was like, yeah, be safe, but it was still like she was way more comfortable with me going out because this was by the time I was kind of driving a little bit. I could,
Yeah.
kind of just she would allow me to just go and do things. Whereas when
Yeah.
I was in Detroit, it was like, who you with? Where you going? How
Oh
long you
yeah.
gonna be there? When you think you're gonna be back? Like she was still like that, but less. It's
Yeah.
hard to like, she wasn't worried about when I would be back too much. She was more worried about who you gonna be with.
Right.
Like
Right.
but other than that, yeah, so that was something that was a little bit more freeing, I think.
Yeah.
And just because it was a small town and you could just go anywhere.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like he's like, "Look, you're not about to go all the way to Wichita, 30-minute drive. You're gonna stay in town and just hang
Right.
out with friends. So like, if I need to, she's like, if I need to get in the car and find you, I can.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Well, I love these parallels because my father was born in Wichita
oh wow.
and started out at Wichita State University. My mother was born in a town called Atchison, Kansas, and
Okay.
Atchison is really teeny tiny,
Hmm.
but you know, the one thing I remember growing up, leaving Michigan to visit my grandparents. in Kansas was the heat.
Yeah.
Was the heat. And, there was no central air conditioning, right? At least for me. I don't know about for you, but she didn't have no central air, right? So it's just like, you're like, oh my God, when is,
Yep.
when is this summer going to be over? But Kansas summers can be really, really hot. And, but I think the thing that I really enjoyed about visiting is, uh that slower pace, that
Yep.
sense of, going fishing with my grandpa, and
Hmm.
just being able to have a time where there wasn't so much strife, or stress, because I could see the stress on my parents. As like I said, they both had a lot of activity in the civil rights era, and just and their migration from Kansas had to do with their ability to get a job that they couldn't get in Kansas, right? So, that but that aspect of being able to switch up and location, and live in a place where you have a sense of ease, where you're not as stressed, or
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. Um, but I love Detroit too. I
Yeah.
really think, yeah,
Love
it's
my
a
city.
really cool city.
Love my city. I went
Yeah,
back
yeah.
recently for a family picnic reunion thing, and it was great.
Nice,
Great.
nice, nice. So, what would you say to those budding or those individuals wanting to get into this craft of filmmaking? Maybe they're younger, maybe they've have a career, and they're trying, and they're wanting to switch up and do something different. So it's a dream that hasn't been realized for them. What would you say that would be helpful to someone getting into this industry?
I would say learn how to tell a good story, um, and just kind of go at it. You have a amazing camera in your pocket, honestly. Um, if you don't know, you know what I mean? If you don't have the resources to buy or afford the gear, because it is expensive, like I'm not even gonna, they say consumer price or whatever, and I'm like, this ain't consumer. What consumer are you talking about? Because it ain't me. Uh, so I would say invest in a good audio kit, use the
Yeah,
phone, use the camera in your pocket, make that happen and shoot your movie. Learn some stuff on YouTube University. Um, don't go spend thousands of dollars on film school like I did. I think it's a show and tell. People don't care. No one has ever asked me when I was going to a job, what school did you go to?
right,
College did you go to for this? Like it very like I can probably count on my two hands how many times someone's cared about
right,
what school I went to for college for this.
right.
It's uh it's definitely a show and tell business. And
Yeah,
you can't show people that you can do something, they're not gonna hire you to do it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
just unfortunately the strong this it's still a fact to this day. Like if
yeah,
you've never shot a movie or directed a movie, you're gonna get you'll be very lucky to um get that opportunity. Um,
right.
so yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna
Finish
say
that thought.
it's kind of like you're not gonna hire a mechanic to fix your car if they've never fixed a car.
That is true. That is true.
Or an open heart surgeon
So,
to, if
right,
they've never done it. So yeah.
right, right, right. Those commercials where I can't remember what they're advertising, but something about, the doctor comes in, and she says, he says, so we're operating on your left arm. She's like, it's my right knee. I
No.
think it's a financial commercial. And you've done some commercials too, right?
Yes, I've done besides my own commercials that I've put together. I've done a commercial for recently, or not recently, but I've done a commercial in 2022 for um, Chiefs for a Black History Month campaign.
Oh, cool, cool. And that's a different dynamic altogether as
Yeah.
far as like the type. So are those kind of fun?
Oh yeah, they are enjoyable. It's a different formula. It's just a different process because you're working with clients and agencies and things like that. You have
Yeah.
to make sure you know you're selling the product basically, and selling the message that they're trying to say with the product. So it's
Right.
definitely a different. Whereas I feel like narrative is a little bit more free flowing. Um, you get to plan all these things and adjust things as needed and make sure it still is coherent to whatever you're trying to say. But whereas commercial was kind of like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to say, and this is how we get there. Um, Whereas you can take many paths in narrative to get to where you're trying to say, I think.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, we had a chance to work on a project together,
Yeah.
which was awesome, through the Creative City KC not for profit, which is UNESCO. Kansas City is the UNESCO Creative City of Music. And you got a chance to help us with a promotional video.
Mhm.
And that was directed by Willie D. Burton, who is a two-time Oscar winner, and just the span of his career just blows my mind, because I think about what I was doing when I was watching Roots,
Yeah.
at 15 years old, and the
Yeah.
sound, the music and everything. And then once we heard that he had done the sound for Oppenheimer, I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the movies. I'm going to sit in the third row. I want to hear every bomb. Boom. What
Yeah.
was it like to work with him?
Oh, Willie's great. Just on a, I would say on a like, I guess on a personal level, I've always been around older people my whole life. So it was great being around someone with that much experience and just soaking up knowledge. Like I'm big on listening. My mom was always told me like if you're talking the most in the room, then you're not listening to anything. You're not consuming anything. And so she was always, I know it's a bad phrase now, I guess, but what was it? Seen, not heard.
Yeah,
I
right.
guess it's out of a taboo. I guess some people don't like it now, but in reading between the lines, it was sit there and listen. Like these are people who have lived longer than you, experienced more than you. Just listen. And they're just telling stories sometimes, or they're just talking about something, and you're just like, wow. And I was a little kid learning from all these people who had more experiences and made more mistakes than I had, so I didn't have to make them. And they weren't talking
Yeah,
to me; they were talking to each other. But my mom allowed me to be there at times if she thought it was appropriate, um, and just told me just like, boy, just sit there.
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and reading between the lines, it was just like she was trying to teach me, just like, hey, just listen. Some people, you don't know what people are going through. And if you just sit there and listen, and that might be why I am the way I am now when it comes to movies, is she was giving me a perspective on different people's lives without me knowing it.
yeah,
And I was
yeah,
allowed to learn from those people's lives so I didn't make those same mistakes. And then there were times when she just, she would tell me her stories and I would learn from her. And so I think she just gave me a lot of perspective on a lot of people's lives just by me just being in the room. And so to this day, I'm always just listening, watching, and consuming from people who I know are older than me or just have lived more than me, or have
yeah,
experienced more than me. Because I never want to feel like I'm the smartest person in the room. Um,
right.
and I always want to put people around me who I believe are um, genuine, but also um, intelligent and um, always trying to move the needle forward. So
Yeah. 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 Well, one thing I really appreciate about you is that you have such a calm demeanor, and you really make people feel so comfortable. I remember when we were shooting a scene for the promotional video for UNESCO, and there was a part where we were just walking in the park, and you were giving a little bit of direction, because at the time the director, who was
yeah,
willing,
yeah.
was actually acting, and I imagine that in some respects might have been a little intimidating, but you're so true to yourself and you're so true to your form, and you're what you're doing. And so I just appreciate how you were able to just kind of guide us in a very um uh just authentic manner, just very with ease. So I appreciate that.
No, you guys are easy to work with.
Yeah.
You guys took direction very well. It wasn't. We knew we had a mission and we knew what that mission was. I think, and so it wasn't too hard to
Yeah.
make that happen.
Well,
Yeah.
cool, cool, cool. So, to bring things to a close, I wanted to ask you, what is it that brings DeVonté joy? What do you do that um that brings joy to your life
That like in any sense,
in
in
any
any
sense?
form. Okay.
Yeah.
Um. Hmm. What does that do that brings joy to my life? I think what brings joy to my life is supporting the people around. I like to speaking on like having mentors and things like that. I like to just be a person that people could come to when they have a question or they're having a difficult moment, whether it's in life, whether it's in this film industry. I like when I'm able to help someone, and maybe just give them a different perspective on maybe a situation, um, comfort them, let them know like, hey man, I got you. Like we gonna rock out, you know. Um, I think I enjoy being able to support other Black filmmakers. Rather it's just, hey man, if you need this piece of gear, I got you. Um,
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Like, if you call me and you're like, hey, I need this thing. If I got it, I got it, and I'm gonna give it to you if I can. Um, I enjoy spending time with my wife.
Nice.
uh, I really do. Whatever that means. It doesn't matter what we're doing. I
Yeah.
enjoy the break from everything. Um, a lot of people tell me she should be on in a part of everything we're doing, or everything I'm doing when it comes to film, because she's an interior designer. But I'm
Ah,
just like, I don't know. I'd rather her be separate from it. I don't want her feeling all this pressure and all this stuff. I'd rather her
yeah.
just be my source of just like, hey, like let's just chill.
Yeah.
Like I need a minute. Like let's just hang out. Let's watch some TV. Let's go for a walk. Let's go
Right.
skating or something. Yeah, that's kind of those two things are just helping my peers. And then spending time with my wife or family in general. Um,
Yeah.
I don't get to go back to Detroit much, but I really um enjoy those few days I get with them. And I
Yeah.
cherish those a lot. So
Nice. Nice. And then one thing that is personal for me, because I have spoken around the country about worth and an individual's sense of self-worth. And what I noticed more than ever is uh, the aspect of creatives and how worth plays into um, our existence. What would you say? What if just generally speaking, how important is self-worth, knowing your worth to you as a creative, and what would you say to others that are in your field in terms of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, self-worth is definitely as like you said, an artist is like, am I, it's one of those questions that I think a lot of artists think about a lot. For me personally, um, I think my self-worth is what it means to me is me being as authentically myself as I can be, but also letting my work speak for itself and letting who I am and my actions speak for themselves. I'm not a showboaty person. Um, I rather let my work and let my actions speak for me. I still to this day say actions speak louder than words. So I rather let my actions speak for me and let my work speak for me. And, um, and hopefully, that's enough.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
I think, um, a lot of times, and I would encourage people who've been doing it for years, every now and again, go back and look at those old projects, whether it's film, whether it's painting, whatever. Just go back and look at those old projects, see how you've grown, see why you made this piece where you were in your mindset. See, like it's good to, as an artist, I think it's good to look back and
Yeah.
see growth, or maybe see that you're in the same spot you were and you're like, oh no, this has to change. Maybe you didn't realize you were stagnant and now you're like, oh snap, yeah, I'm stagnant, I need to move.
Yeah.
And things like that I think help artists when they can appreciate who they are and where they come from and where they've
Yeah.
come from and where they are now. So
Awesome. Well, DeVonté, thank you so, so very much for being on stage on Fave Unite TV. Your words are going to just ripple through so many lives that see this, not only from a creative standpoint, but from people who just really know that they have a story to tell, and that their story is important. So I want to thank you so much for being on stage. And just want to welcome people to come to faveunitetv.com and check out our podcast, check out our short films and all of the other wonderful content that we have there. And definitely look forward to seeing DeVonté as work on wherever you are, wherever it is, go see DeVonté Brown's work. So thank you so much, everyone. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, all the socials, and you have a fantastic day. Thank you.
thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching On Stage on Fave Unite TV. If you're new to Fave Unite TV and you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a comment below, give us a thumbs up, and share it with your friends. If you'd like to see more content from Fave Unite TV, go ahead and subscribe. We're here for Black stories and Black storytellers. We're showcasing the culture on Fave Unite TV.